Hello and welcome to yet another, I would say, pretty exciting episode in the way that a lot happened before I hit record today. So, just to give you a context, while we were working on today's conversation, maybe a day or a day or two prior, for some reason, my business email stopped syncing, and I was like, why I haven't got any email yet? I'm sending some emails to the people, and then I found that they're all in the outbox. and uh, and
Wow.
then yeah,
Okay.
while I know, while I was working on it, then I got to know that obviously the podcast which was supposed to be recorded today couldn't do that because you see one gentleman here, the other two gentlemen which whom I was planning to have this podcast, for some unavoidable circumstances they have to cancel, and then they mentioned, but I didn't get the email for the similar reason. And then while we were discussing on air with my guest today about what kind of topic, now we are already here, then my internet stopped working, and then I have to reboot my machine. I hope I hope we can record it without any I would say seamlessly. So let's get started here. So I would like to welcome Kumaran Anandan, who already happened to be our guest in our previous episode, and I have to look into which what that episode is, the episode number, because I just want to make sure people are aware of that. And I wrote it down, the episode number where he okay, yeah. So from Let's Talk Podcast, the episode number 32. Uh, Sir, you were there. You provided a lot of insights around performance for those people. At that time, I think all the layoff happened, and there was a tough economic situation, which is still here.
I
It's
agree.
not like it's
Yeah.
over. However, you provided some Okay, before even that, if you are coming for the first time, if you haven't seen that show, Kumaran is he's a chief technical officer in Tiny Magic, which is a very good entrepreneurial venture. I'll let him speak about the company as well, and also he is very much into habits and behavior, which, as we spill the beans today, I hope we can get some ideas around that. We discussed why I'm saying ideas like that. So, Kumran, sir, thank you so much again for having all these ups and downs and still having that much patience to be on the podcast, patiently listening, and thank you again and welcome once more on Let's Talk.
Yeah. It's always fun talking to you, and congratulations on your 50th episode. I saw that.
Hey,
It takes a
thank you
lot.
so much.
Uh, and I guess it's important to call out the context, right? I have seen so many people starting out, right? You have one episode, two episodes, three, and after seven or eight, it's very easy to lose steam, and it's hard to be consistent. So good job and congratulations on it. It's actually hard doing it. It's not an easy thing.
Thank you so much. I mean, the guest like you always keeps me driving from one episode to another. Otherwise, yeah, it's sometimes I have my days as well. So let me put it like that. So yeah, quickly, what is Tiny Magic?
So when I was working in when I started my career in Wipro, and when the solutions or the technology solutions weren't creating a wow, I thought maybe the company is too small, right? Or we are doing services projects, hence it wasn't good. I moved to Microsoft, 10 years there. It was same story, but at a different scale. Okay. Uh, the enterprise applications, business applications weren't really producing the wow that is there, which a B2C application produces. And when you looked at it deeper, I think there were a lot of things which technology today misses. And that thing, ironically, is what the customer, the user, is actually feeling and wanting, and what he wants to use. It was very heartening to hear the CTO in Build 2023 telling that it is not about what you build, it is about what the end users are using. So you shouldn't lose focus on that. So we have had billions of dollars, which I would put under the category of operation success, patient debt. Excellent projects executed, some of them on time, some of them beyond time, some of them with budget, but without budget. But the morgue is filled with projects which are not used by end users, right? And I would say, even if you take my personal experience, I'm uh, honestly, probably, if I'm very liberal with myself, I would say 70% of my projects fall into that category. 30% were really used by end users. It really made them happy. The rest 70, I would say 20 of them were pissed, and 50 of them just chose to remain silent, hold the silence forever. So this is my 25 years. Like, why did this happen is why Tiny Magic is there. Why aren't we producing the wow, the buzz? Uh, oh, I mean, there are enough applications in the B2C space which do that magic, right? WhatsApp, right? Your parents, my parents use WhatsApp. Where was the change management there? Who taught them how to use it? They are using that. My plumber, electrician, they can't read English, but they can't live without WhatsApp. UPI in India, the fruit seller, the coconut seller, who taught them? Where was the change management? Where is the user manual? Nothing, but it's getting used. Why isn't that happening in the enterprise space? So Tiny Magic happened. It's a frustration that, there's some core things that we are missing in the enterprise space, and why don't I do something about it, is where we and Sukumar got together. And Tiny Magic is all about that, making, delivering happiness through proper or appropriate solution of a problem.
Wow, that's great. I think that is very wonderfully you have put it, the why of the organization and what exactly the mission is. And you are so true and accurate now. What I'm thinking about is we build a lot of things, but building is one thing, but kind of fulfilling or the things which we have built resulting in maybe a gratifying result of the end users, whether they are really implementing those things, because you can have those ego boosters of, I have created some complex project and I have created a big product, but then there are very few takers around that. So that's a great way of putting it, that build what the end users are looking for and what exactly it solves certain problems. Because, and that's where the, I think your skills, Sukumar's skills, comes into the picture, is a thought leaders to understand that what we are doing so far, does those things help us get in the future or not, or do we have to pivot? So that's a great way of putting the perspective and the reason about Tiny Magic. So that brings me in a question, which is, I think, the core idea which we just built in on the fly today, is the ideas. So you mentioned that ideas is something like a logic or suggestion everyone has in abundance. However, execution is that one of the most expensive currency which they do not have in their pocket. And that's where we try to explore today about ideas. And one thing you mentioned, and I love that phrase, which was off the record, is good ideas are bad. So let's try to explore and open the Pandora's box here. And let me know, what about what's you have in ideas? Why are you saying good ideas are bad, and what's your perspective? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I guess this kind of struck me couple of months back, right? And uh, I was actually thinking for myself. I've this. I mean, let's just recall. I'm sure all of us can think of one or two ideas which we have been having for years, months, kind of thing, right? So, when is an idea remain an idea? It's very simple. If you look at it brutally, when no action has been taken about a thought, it is an idea. The moment you take an action, it ceases to be an idea. It is a work in progress. So, I can fairly say with confidence that when I say a great idea I have, it actually means I have done nothing about it. Now, if I say I have a great
Yes.
idea for 2 years, that means I have done nothing about it for 2 years.
Yes.
So the moment it's a kind of very liberating thought in a way. It looks negative, but it's actually a liberating thought. Now you have two choices. Either you let go of the thought and then say, this is not for me, or you kind of say, okay, I got to do something about it. Now, what is that I have to do something about it? How long am I going to talk and not take an action? And that leads us to the next question. Is there any idea where I can take absolutely no action about it? And let's give ourselves a time frame, right? If it is at a personal level, this is just a thumb rule, right? If it's at a personal level, 1 day. If it is my team, it is 1 week. If it is a cross collaboration team, let's say within my department, 2 weeks. If it is at an org level, a month. But I don't think any idea needs to be an idea beyond a month. Now, if it's going to be that, then I'd be honest to myself that, I'm not committed to this idea. It is just a fantasy I'm having that somewhere magically something will happen and it'll move. Or I have to say, I'm committed to this. I want to make something to happen here and I'm going to do something about it. And within these time frame, these are just thumb rules for you. So,
Okay. That's
and
that's yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so I was just telling it's about, so the typical things people kind of get stuck is, I have this big idea. How do I do it? Or what should I'm not able to take action around that. So there's just one small thing which I have over here, which I call as producing Rlets or resultlets. Instead of big things to happen, can I just like a droplet of water is what starts off a tsunami or a thunderstorm, not a tsunami, a thunderstorm or a cyclone, right? It starts off as a droplet. Without a droplet, a thunderstorm is not going to happen. So I need to produce an Rlet, a resultlet that will only give me momentum. Lot of thinking about it is not going to give momentum. So we think of results and we make it big. But can we do an Rlet which will give us momentum? So, example, right? For example, here we got into this call, something happened, right? People didn't turn up. But then we are committed to making a result happen. So it is being very passionate about creating results and committed to making a result happen. So I think that is the thing. Now the question comes is result is very big. So I'm telling let's do an Rlet, which is a smaller version of the result.
Okay. So I'll pause you out there
Okay.
respectfully to before getting into the how exactly we can execute. So about ideas. So as you mentioned that it's people have ideas and then there should be some time frame associated with that. You have some certain kind of thumb rules for that as well. Now ideas obviously keep on coming up. That is the way how the human brain works. And you will
Correct.
look into certain things. The more you observe and the more you provide some thoughts around it, you may have some ideas. Then the question is, I have 100 ideas. Okay.
Hmm.
And I know that certain things I can execute, certain I cannot. But before even getting to the execution state, how do I funnel it? I mean, as you mentioned, that some are gone into fantasy land because of you're not doing anything on a month. Now, this may be one of the, I would say, a controversial or provocative in a way that some people say, oh, okay. I mean, for you, maybe it's easy. For me, it's not. You don't know my situation, right? So, what's your
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
to that? What's your solution, a generic solution to ideate on the idea that how do we kind of funnel them, which is kind of agnostic to anyone's situation?
All of us have only a limited set of resources. That's a fact. Whether it is time, money, energy. Now, energy can be physical energy or mental energy. So, based on the resources that we have, that is on one hand, how much of resources do I have? And second, not all ideas are created equal. There are some ideas closer to our art, there are some ideas which is farther away from us. Like, for example, if you say something that I want to do for myself, let's say my fitness, is would be closer to me. But would I like to make my community, the apartment which I live in, all of them to be fit? Yes, I would like it to be, but that's further. I have some ideas of that. So you pick something which is closer to you, which you feel strongly about that it is going to make life better. So you think of an idea and say, if this happens, how will that world be? There is some idea which will definitely bring a bigger smile, the other will give a smaller smile. So pick the one which is a bigger smile. I would just use that as the guiding force. And then pick one idea. You have 10 ideas, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Pick one idea which brings the smile and make a result out of that. That's fine. Just get to be, it's all about starting, right? Take
Okay.
one idea and then move it. So that's not an idea anymore. It's become an action.
Action.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, then the next thing becomes take the next idea. The moment you execute something, an idea is not an idea. It's a work in progress. You're moving.
Yes. Okay.
So kill
So
ideas by action.
I know you kill ideas by taking actions, which is a very positive way of looking at it as well. So you mentioned that ideas are only ideas without any action. Once you start executing, then it becomes work in progress. So okay, let's take step by step approach. So I got an idea. I understood that you mentioned that take those ideas which are more, I would say, near to you and maybe a low hanging fruits or quick wins in a way that this is something which I can do. And then once I get to that stage, then I'll try to venture out as well, which I think some of the leaders mention as well that you don't have to go 10 to 12 steps from now. Take the next best step, what is looking good for you, and then you can take those steps. So okay, we got the idea. I try to work in progress, and you mentioned in between before as well that okay, there are some categories where people cannot sustain. So you mentioned about the podcast. Some people did, and shameless plug for me. You complimented me on 50th episode, which I'll try to feed in here as well. But yeah, so consistency is something, or persistence is something which is also. So what about that idea? I got the idea now. Work in progress. Now what?
Okay. So the the thing is about why do we stop doing something is important to understand. Okay. We stop because we run out of resources. That is why.
Wow. Hmm. Yes.
That's why we stop. Okay. And these resources can be time, money, mental energy, or physical energy.
Amazing. Yes.
And more often than not, it's mental energy. Because if you're alive means you have some physical energy.
Yes.
Okay. You're alive means you got some time. Okay. And predominantly people have some money. It's not like they have zero or even when you are, even somebody in debt is still getting some money coming in. So that's all there. Okay. So the question then becomes that we acknowledge that the resources keep coming down and be very conscious of how much resource that I have. And you tune your action to accommodate the resource that you have. So it's so let me show you one interesting it's like a interesting template which I would call is that, okay, so let me just show this.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can share your screen as well if you would like.
Let's see, probably this would help. Let's see how well it shows up on.
Okay.
Is the screen is get for some reason it's getting cut? Yeah,
Let me
I
see.
think that's good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
now it's
just
good.
changed that. Yep, I just changed that. Okay, cool.
Okay, so if I kind of look at this, right, and
Mhm.
I kind of, okay, so let me just put this. What do you see? I mean, I kind of moved it quickly, but then
Well,
Mona Lisa
I'm seeing an image, blurred image. That's it.
of who would be there? Who could that be?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can only make some guesses based on my prior experience of seeing this image.
Okay, so so the thing is, it is Mona Lisa, right? Now the thing is, probably because it's a screen and then it's zoomed out, but when you put it on a actual screen,
Mhm.
nearly all of them call out Mona Lisa, but they're not seeing the full picture. But still, they are able to make the guess that correctly, so that it's Mona Lisa. Now, the key difference between the two pictures, if you look at it, is the picture on the left is low fidelity, whereas the picture on the right is high fidelity.
Mhm.
But they still convey what the image is. So the key point is you really don't have to have a high fidelity image to guess the picture. My objective is to make sure somebody can guess the picture. So if I want to get to a result, I can have a low fidelity result. I need not go for a high fidelity result. For a high fidelity result, you need a lot of resources. For a low fidelity result, things you don't need that many. So let me kind of show if I can show another example here. You see this picture over here.
Yeah.
Okay. There's five men and some trees, right? Now, when I ask people, hey, can you draw this? Okay. And you have 5 minutes to produce a result. Most of them say, no, I can't. And I actually pick up the person with the who claims to have the most poor skills in drawing to make the drawing. And they actually do it. So, what would be the secret? The secret is a low fidelity. So, if I say low fidelity, what comes out is, let me just show that. Let me just skip through this for a moment. Okay.
Sure.
And I would actually show what, can anybody draw this? Absolutely.
Yes.
Does it convey the actual message? Five people under a tree? It does.
It
Do
does.
you need
Yeah.
a lot of resources? Do you need a lot of resources for this? No. When I say resources, you don't need high skills, you don't need a lot of time, and you can get the job done. Now, it's not perfect, but it gets the job done. I want to convey the message that this is an image of five people under the tree. And you're asking, how do I keep momentum? You keep building on this. You go to the next fidelity version. Now you have done this, you have certain confidence, you have a momentum. Then you go to the next fidelity. You don't stop with that alone. Then you increase the fidelity to the next one. And probably in a period of a year, you would reach the skill to produce the actual image like this. So it is about reducing the fidelity of the solution and keep doing it. And then you keep increasing the fidelity of the solution till you hit the actual goal that you
Wow.
want to. And you get momentum. And there is actually an interesting tool. This is actually a work inspired by Mihaly. It's called Flow. So if you look at this image over here, you can actually see that there are two axes over here. There is a resource and a challenge. Now, if let's say somebody is here, right? They're kind of stuck. The challenge is high and the resource is low. Okay. So let's say somewhere you are here. The
Hmm.
probability that that is what I'm talking about, the topmost left corner where you see the red dot, right? There's a very little chance somebody would have momentum. Now, if they have to get into the happy path, either they have to go this way or they have to come this way, right? To get from here into the happy path. Happy path is where momentum is happening. So the question is, if somebody is here, what is the easiest way to get to the happy path? Is it increasing resources, moving like this, or reducing the challenge and moving this way? The answer is obvious. You can't increase resources. That is
Yes.
reality. Whatever resources you have at a point in time, you have that. You can wish for more resources, but that does not go to increase resources. Okay.
Yes.
So what you kind of do is drop the challenge of the solution that you're trying to get to. Then it gives you momentum. Let's just take what happened here. You took up a big challenge that you're going to get three guys and we're going to discuss a big topic. It got stuck. Now, if let's assume that all of us, like you didn't, but let's say you were stuck in the part that I have to get with all these three people, you would have lost momentum. You would have lost an episode. You reduce the challenge to say, it's fine. Instead of three, I still have one. Instead of that topic, I'm going to pick this. You reduce the challenge for yourself. Now you are still able to produce a result. If you had stuck to that high fidelity result that I'm going to have three people, you would have nothing today. We would have just aborted. So what we
Mhm.
just did is applying this principle, what I'm talking about over here, to produce the results.
Wow. Okay. So, Kumran, sincerely mentioned that this is an amazing way of I would say, providing this. What you're saying with examples you did in the past, but now we have some pictorial representations as well, and I think that really opened, from my perspective, a lot of a new way to make people understand, specifically around strategy, because I do a lot of in my day job, I do a lot of security strategy, and reaching out to all the CISOs and CIOs, and the way what you have provided is give some kind of a food for thought that strategy is not something very, I mean, it may be a theory and your North Star goals, and goals not always be crystal clear at the get go. You should be knowing certain philosophies, some cultures, and what end goal looks like. But then there may be peaks and valleys. And as I love that example of have five men and low fidelity, and I think the message has to be gone across, which you can do without having that high fidelity image or being an artist. That's an excellent way. I'm so happy that we are having this impromptu conversation, because I today I learned something more about it. So that's great. So what else? So you said that an example that obviously you get an idea. Now you are taking to some execution, work in progress. You mentioned that in that work in progress, sustainability, persistence is required. And most of the driving force for not going ahead would be the lack of resources in that perspective. And you mentioned that resources are always the same. You may have a bit of a challenge here and there, and then you have to kind of pivot as well. So yeah, what else? Like you get into that mode, you are struggling. So let's go into that situation. You are
Mhm.
pumped up, you created an idea, you work in progress, you hit a roadblock. Now what? How do you
Yes.
overcome that?
So let's look at. Uh, so this is a thing that is bound to happen to all of us. Okay. Now imagine a video game is played. Okay. And level one. okay, any of the good games that you talk about,
Yeah.
Halo or things like that, okay, you start it, okay, the villain appears, you shoot him and he dies, okay, you think the game is going to be popular?
No.
It
Exactly.
doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually people enjoy failure. That's what video games are. Video games are celebrations of failures.
Wow. Okay. That's a great perspective. Okay. Yeah. Tell me more about it.
Okay,
Yes.
the point is because people don't look at it as failures, because every time you make an attempt and you get killed, you are actually failing. But that is not how the gamer thinks. The gamer thinks, where did I go wrong? What can I get it right next time? So his failure actually gives him energy to try
Hmm.
again. Try taking a game away from a kid. You would know what energy means and how they deal. So
How they do.
you stand
Yeah.
next you stand next to a kid and then say, hey, you failed. This level got over. Stop it. They'll say, no, 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 I want to try again. So the result has to give you a learning. That's the important thing. That's why I said a result led has to. So when you kind of committed to that and then you miss something, it naturally becomes that, hey, I learned I shouldn't do this. I should tweak it and try again. That thing is what gives you motivation. Now, if you're whatever you are doing, if it doesn't produce that clear learning opportunity, you didn't know why you failed, or you didn't even know you failed,
Yeah.
you won't get energy. That's where people lose momentum. Now, the moment you know why you failed, more often than not, people will get an idea on what correction they have to do to restart again. It is like play again, clicking the play again in the video game. Now, again, to do that with the resources that you have, do another Arlet. That is how you get momentum and energy. Now, the moment you start doing Arlets, okay, you failed again. So, I was talking about playing in the nets. Why is it so easy? Because you're just focusing on one thing. You tell whoever is the one who's bowling at you or pitching at you, hey, I'm weak in this ball. Keep throwing the same thing again and again. If I fail, then I threw that. But if I just practice it in a real life thing, I don't know what the opponent is going to do. One, he might throw a curveball, the next one might be a straight ball. I don't have an opportunity to learn. But if I'm going to be in the nets, I'm reducing the challenge of guessing what the ball is. I know that it is going to be a short ball or an over pitch ball, and I can practice playing that continuously. So my learning process becomes very quick. So when you reduce the challenge to say, I'm going to practice in the net, I'm going to get this guy to bowl the same ball again and again till I get it right, it becomes a lot more easier. So if you miss the ball, you'll say, please, one more time. I want to try it again. It becomes very easy. But if you go full big bang that I'm going to have a match, you have no control over the opponent. The challenge becomes too high. So that's the
Mhm.
key thing, right? You reduce it such that you can quickly learn something, and that enthusiasm to retry again, you get the energy. But for that, you need to know why you failed. It has to be very clear. And what tweak that you need to do your second attempt. That is what will sustain you, sustain the momentum, and willing to do that low fidelity thing. Once you
So,
get this, you get into a virtuous loop.
so here's a very fundamental question. You first of all put it very beautifully, which is so understandable at the same time. It's so obvious. Now, the question is, if it's so obvious in video games, if it's so
Mhm.
obvious in other walks of life,
Mm.
why we are still we do not have that much kind of success? Why we are still having issues with the human issues of mediocrity or failure, and then not doing anything from that perspective? As you mentioned, like why we are still having this conversation when it's so obvious that in video games we would like to try again and again, but in real life most of the people say that, as I still remember you mentioned, you might be failed, but you are not a failure. And you in previous podcasts you mentioned. So why exactly we are having this? I mean, why still we are talking about this if it's so understood and it's so natural?
We have a go big or go home attitude for every attempt. That's the problem. So I think we need to go in for a small result. So even if you fail, you haven't lost much. You don't feel like a loser. So it's very important to design a Rlet which requires not that much of resources.
Hmm.
So even if you fail, you can look at it with a smile. So it's like what the thing with the video game, right? Like let's say you just said the video games, okay? And then you associate such that the kids won't get chocolate if they lose a level. Try it that way,
Mhm.
right? You can try, but within the next 10 tries, if you don't clear that level, no ice cream this week. The kids will stop playing the game because you have made the challenge very high for them.
Hmm. Okay.
Hardly any parent tries it. This is you can play, but in the next 10 tries, you have to clear the level and go to the
Hmm.
next level. Otherwise, no ice cream this week or no TV this week.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to sit and watch, play the game. In the next 10 tries, you have to do it. They will lose interest in the game. But typically, there is no cost associated with trying. It's just a question of power and restarting it. The kids are not paying the price. They might lose studies and things like that, but that's not in their mind. It's not a price that they are paying. Their only price that they are paying is that E. So we have to reduce the cost of what we are spending per hourlet so that even we can take failures easily. So
Yes.
either I will do this big thing and then you, it's like, let's say I have $10,000 and I go and buy three stocks and then it goes boom and then I lose all the money, right? Then I'm completely stuck. Rather, you take whatever little resource you have and you have to think, and each person, you just said at the beginning, right? Different people have different capacities, different skills like that. So if I'm good at drawing, probably I will take the third level of that image as my first attempt.
Yeah.
If I'm miserable at drawing, I will take the first level. But either way, both of them can move from one level to another. So that's, I think, is the important thing, where you reduce the investment that you make such that you can actually treat it like a learning rather than that you've lost everything, and don't put so much into something such that you go. I mean, for example, right, let's take this podcast itself, right? Assume that you went all out, okay, and you sponsored our tickets, you hired a studio,
Yes.
okay, and then you and I land up in the studio with two empty chairs. You would be crestfallen. You would say, I'm not doing this show anymore,
Again, yes.
right? Or at least it will throw you off track for 3 4 months before you can gather yourself up because you would have invested so much into it.
Hmm.
So I think that is the key thing. We got to know how much can I invest such that I can sustain. So one, go in for a small Rlet. And by nature of doing that, the investment that you have to put in is less. It's not very big, which you can afford. And you can truly treat it as a price of learning. There are a lot of other advantages. When you reduce the complexity of a solution, the amount of stakeholders you have to convince also becomes less. The resistance that you would face also becomes less.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
it has multiple aspects once you start making it low fidelity. Less resources, less result, you have, you produce something out of it. And that's the way you can actually not get de-energized and demotivated.
That's a great way. I mean, Kumaran, as I'm repeatedly saying, because I'm grasping so many things and such a good examples you have mentioned that makes things obviously in a crux. is just like when you have an idea, you have to start working towards an idea, make small moves, calculated moves to ensure that not that much at stake. Because the more bigger risks you take, and if something falls or goes south, then the problem would be that there is a probability that you'll stop. So take small steps, but keep moving because every individual has a different time clock. So it's not
Yeah,
like, oh, this guy has become a CEO in 10 years, and after 15 years, I'm not even like in his in the board of directors, for example, right? So understand time clock, continue learning. As you mentioned, that there's a cost of learning. It should not be that much high, which will really uh, I mean, goes down to either anxiety, depression, or whatever the things may be, and then you
yeah,
totally think that you are a failure instead of thinking that this is just one of the failed attempt. Um, so that being said, Corman, I could have gone long on this weekend, but in this, I think 40 minutes, you have provided so much of gems and nuggets here. Definitely, I will look into this podcast again, and I'll request everyone to don't skip any of this, and please go till end to end. And the examples what Kumran has mentioned and showcased, that is truly remarkable and thought provoking, which is basically the DNA of our Let's Talk a podcast. Is that we are not providing you always a solution, we are providing a direction, because you can provide your own solutions when you keep moving and work in progress. So Kumran, thank you again for providing
sure.
your valuable time, pivoting, and kept patience to record this amazing impromptu episode, which I'm so glad we did.
Thank you. It was fun. Have a good day.
Sure,
Yeah,
thanks. We hope you enjoyed our show today. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media or leave a comment. Don't forget, yes, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And if you find value in our conversation today, we would be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating, reviews, or comments. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we will be back with another episode next week. Till then, keep the conversation going. Let's talk.